Welcome back. So last time we kind of laid the groundwork, right? Talking about why clean architecture matters, how it fits in with all the different ways programming has evolved over the years.
Right, the big picture.
Exactly. But now let's get a little more hands-on. Let's look at how Uncle Bob actually suggests we organize our code, using these principles.
Okay, yeah, let's dive into that. One thing that really stuck with me was that screaming architecture idea.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Like the code itself is shouting out what the application's all about.
Yeah.
What's
Like
that?
imagine you walk into a building.
Okay.
You can instantly tell what it's for, right?
Right, a hospital feels different from a library.
Exactly. And that's what Uncle Bob wants for our code. You should be able to look at it and boom, you know what the system does, what its main purpose is, how everything fits together.
So it's not just about making the code work. It's about making it understandable.
Exactly. Make it easy for other developers to come in and understand what's going on.
Right, or even yourself, like 6 months later.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Because nobody wants to try and decipher spaghetti code, right? Uncle Bob compares this to architectures that scream about the frameworks and tools they use. It's like being so focused on the hammer and nails that you forget what you're actually building.
Gotcha. So how do we actually create this screaming architecture? He talks about this packaging by feature thing.
Right, that's a big part of it. So instead of grouping code by technical layers like controllers, services, repositories, we group it by the actual business features it represents.
Okay, so we're thinking more about what the code does for the user, for the business.
Yeah, we're thinking vertically, focusing on the features, not horizontally, like on the technical layers.
Can you give me an example? Like how would this actually look in practice?
Sure. Let's say you're building an e-commerce site, right? So instead of having separate packages for all your controllers, services, repositories, all that stuff, you might have packages for things like user management, order processing, product catalog. Each package holds all the code related to that specific feature.
So if I need to work on, say, a new payment processing feature, I just go to the order processing package and everything I need is right there.
Exactly. Everything's nicely organized, easy to find. You're less likely to break something in a completely different part of the system.
And that's always a good thing.
Right. Uncle Bob argues this leads to a cleaner, more cohesive structure compared to the traditional package by layer approach.
Okay, I can see that. But doesn't packaging by feature kind of create more coupling between features? Especially if they need to share some common functionality.
That's a good point. And Uncle Bob definitely addresses that.
Oh, good.
He stresses how important it is to have well-defined interfaces, and this is key, dependency inversion.
Okay, back to dependency inversion.
Features should interact with each other through these abstract interfaces, not concrete implementations. It's like having a universal adapter, right? Different devices can connect without needing to know about each other's internal workings.
Oh, right, like those travel adapters you use
Uh-huh.
for different countries.
Exactly. So even with packaging by feature, we still need to be mindful of how those different parts of the system are talking to each other.
So it's all about finding the right balance.
Right. We want a structure that reflects the business domain, but we also need flexibility and modularity. Uncle Bob also gets into how to manage dependencies, talking about stable dependencies and the I metric.
The I metric, yeah. Honestly, that formula kind of went over my head.
It can be a bit much, but think of it like this.
Okay.
You've got your code base, right?
Yep.
It's this network of interconnected components.
Okay.
Some components are more stable than others. Like the ones dealing with the core business logic, they're pretty solid, right? They don't change that often.
Okay, those are like the foundation of the house you were talking about earlier.
Exactly. But then you've got other components that are more volatile, like the user interface.
Right. They can change all the time
Right.
based on user feedback, new trends.
Right. The I metric helps us identify those potentially wobbly parts. It's all about making sure our dependencies are pointing towards stability. We want the volatile components to depend on the stable ones, not the other way around.
So it's like, don't build your house on top of a sandcastle.
Exactly. Dependency inversion helps us with this. It's like a traffic controller, directing the dependencies the right way.
So by following these principles, it's almost like we're building a protective barrier around the core of our application, right? Shielding it from all the changes that are happening on the outside.
You got it. It's like building a fortress around your business logic, making sure it can handle all those new features, technology updates, everything that gets thrown at it.
Makes sense. All this talk of fortresses and protection, it makes me think about testing. How does testing fit into this whole clean architecture picture?
Oh, testing is super important. And clean architecture actually makes testing a lot easier
Oh, how so?
because you've got these loosely coupled modular components, right?
Yeah.
So it's much easier to write targeted tests for each piece of the system in isolation.
So you're not testing the whole application at once.
Nope. You can break down the testing process into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay, thanks.
You can find and fix problems early on before they blow up into something huge.
That sounds a lot less stressful.
Way less stressful. And Uncle Bob really emphasizes designing for testability from the beginning. It's not something you tack on at the end. It's built into the architecture.
Got it. So we've talked about the general principles, but I'm curious about how this plays out in different situations, like
Mhm.
building a web app versus a mobile app versus, I don't know, something like an embedded system.
That's a great question, and that's actually exactly what we're going to look at in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. Can't wait to explore that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these ideas work in those different contexts.
Definitely. So, see you next time.
See you then.